So let's talk a little bit about Cisco certifications and CCNA in general. CCNA was the beginning certification that Cisco released many years ago, and it has blossomed since then. It is often considered the baseline knowledge for anyone involved in networking. Even those in server-related things, it's a great curriculum to go through to understand how applications communicate across the internet, how your network works in any fashion. Even if you're a server guy, it's useful. So CCNA is considered the baseline level of knowledge that almost everyone should know, or at least in my opinion, everyone should know in some way. When I first took it, it really opened my mind to all of the things that are happening behind the scenes that you don't think about. When we get into it later on in the later videos, you'll see it. The amount of communications involved for simply just opening a web page is amazing, and to really understand what's happening behind the scenes makes you a better person, a better IT professional, because you'll have a better understanding as to where something may go wrong. It'll by understanding this core technology, you'll understand where things may break and what they may look like when they break, and it really it helps you. It really does. I always recommend CCNA to almost everybody to start. It really doesn't matter what you're doing. I mean, even if you're into the computer science side of things and you want to get into programming, there's a good chance you're probably going to be working on some sort of application that's going to need to communicate in some fashion over a network, especially nowadays. If you are in a small team, there's a good chance you're going to be working on something related to that. So to understand how networking actually works is a good thing to know. You don't necessarily have to go through everything, but to get an idea as to what's happening behind the scenes is great. So everything has blossomed since CCNA, and we now have various levels of certification. So we have the entry level, associate level, professional, expert, and now we have this new level that came about a year or two ago or something like that, the architect level. So each level is obviously more difficult than the level before, and sometimes there's more exams required than the level before. Kind of depends, but that's the general idea behind it. So you have the entry level here. We have the one that we're going to look at here is CCENT. So CCENT really is half of CCNA. So if you take a look at CCENT, it's ICND 1. So those who are familiar in any way with the CCNA certification system, you have ICND 1 and 2 essentially, or like the two halves of CCNA. So CCENT is the first half of CCNA, really. It's the core knowledge of how the networks operate, the basics of using an iOS device, a little bit of routing, switching, just real basic things, subnetting, things like that, how IP works, and that's the basic idea behind CCENT. And then CCNA is the other half of it, which goes into connecting to the WAN, serial links, access lists, all sorts of stuff like that. And that gets into the more involved technical side of things. So I guess you could say if you are one of those people like I mentioned who do programming or something like that, if you want to take anything out of this, go for the first half videos or so that we have here, which essentially will cover the CCENT. That's the core knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes, and then the stuff later on, the second half, is more hands-on lab type configuration and such. So if we go back, we'll take a look at the CCNA. They've rebranded things from time to time. So now CCNA is called CCNA Routing and Switching. These names change over time. They every couple of years they'll refresh the information and the training material. This course is actually based off of the very latest version, version 5 of their training material. So I read through everything. I took my own notes. I went through and redesigned my own curriculum around this new material that they're training. Go through the requirements, certification requirements, the testing information lists that are out there, there's some great resources that we'll go over that will help you along your way. So if we go and look at our CCNA routing and switching, you'll see that there's three exams that are, there are three exams that you could potentially take. You have the one big exam, the 200-120, or you can take, as we saw before, ICND 1, which is CCENT, and ICND 2, which is the CCNA exam technically. I usually recommend people to take the one big exam actually, because at least the way it used to work, and still to this day works, is if you take the large exam, there'll be less material covered in detail. So if you're not so great in one spot, you'll have less questions on that area because they have to pack in so much into one exam. There's more questions on the larger exam, but it's more broad in its breadth. If you do ICND 1 and 2, they're a little bit more detailed on the specifics of that exam, and they get more involved in them. So if you want to space it out over time, and just take one and then take two for ICND 1 and 2, then that's fine. Or if you want to just sit through, watch all these videos, do a bunch of lab work on your own, and then just boom, go for the exam. Doing that first one there, 200-120, is great. And if you click on them, if you're on the Cisco website, they'll have additional resource links, and we'll go over some additional tools and resources out there. There's the Cisco Learning Network. They go through the exam topics here. They'll give you all the information as to what they're going to test you on. My goal is in this video series is to go over all of these items and address everything that they want to test you on, as well as adding some stuff. I've added some history of the internet coming up here. I've cut out some things that are redundant. Cisco likes to repeat themselves over and over again sometimes, so I've tweaked to what I feel is the best way of doing things, the curriculum essentially. So that's what we're going to go over here, and all the notes that I've taken and script essentially you could consider for behind the scenes here, I will have available in some fashion for either a nominal fee or for something like that on the Andrew Crouthamel website that you saw in the last video. And most likely there'll be links in the description below if you're watching this on a streaming site such as YouTube or something like that. As for the recertification, so every couple years you have to recertify. I believe right now it's every 3, and you need to recertify your knowledge in CCNA. And in order to do that, you have to either retake a similar level exam, such as ICND 2, or retake the CCNA exam, or you can actually take a higher level exam, and that will refresh. Not only will it get you one step closer to a higher level certification, but it will refresh all of the lower level certifications. So if you actually had CCNA, CCNA Wireless, CCNA Voice, and then you went and took one CCNP route exam, that would refresh all the ones below it, as well as give you credit of 1/3 of CCNP. So it's actually, their recertification policy is very nice and very flexible. So as long as you're always retesting that same level or one above, which frankly I try to go for one above, that will refresh everything below it, and you're good for another couple of years. And it's actually a really nice policy. So don't feel too uncertain about that when going for certifications of, oh man, every year I need to go and retest again, and then it's such a pain, and there's so much money involved. And you can usually find you can either get your company to pay for the exam maybe, or you can find vouchers out there for discounts. There's ways of doing it, and it's really only a couple of years. Every few years you have to go do that. It's really not too bad. If you start to get a whole ton of certifications, then you have to every year, so you have to go and retest on one of them. but it's up to you how many you get. So if you just stick with the Cisco path, it actually is pretty easy. And then, of course, if you want to go higher than the professional level, you have the ultimate CCIE that people always talk about. There's 2 exams for that. There's a written and a lab exam. The lab one being the big kahuna that everyone complains about, and they have to retest several times to win to get it. So there's great amount of knowledge for you to learn in the Cisco certification system. There's really great resources out there, and we'll go through some of those in the next video.